I had always prided myself on being the calm one, the steady one in my circle. My name is Ethan, and in my job, reading people isn't just a skill, it's survival. But even with all that experience, nothing prepared me for the way my own relationship began to unravel. My fiancée, Claire, had always been ambitious, fiercely independent, at times completely absorbed in her work. I understood it, or at least I thought I did. I knew her late nights at the office weren't just about her paycheck. They were her world, her sense of control, her identity. That Thursday evening started like any other. My phone buzzed with a message from Claire. "Working late tonight, don't wait up," short, indifferent, almost dismissive. I read it once, twice, and then typed back almost without thinking. I'm not alone either. It was simple, casual, but the meaning behind it was anything but. The words carried weight, a subtle mirror reflecting her distance back at her. I didn't even know she'd notice, at least not right away. Hours passed. The quiet hum of the apartment was heavy, almost suffocating. I paced, not out of anxiety, but out of anticipation, curious, watching the chain of events unfold. My phone lit up again. Claire had read my message, and then almost immediately she typed something back. But it wasn't the usual "okay, see you later," or the detached acknowledgement I had come to expect. No, this response carried something different. A pause, hesitation, shock I could almost feel through the screen. "Wait, what do you mean?" I smiled quietly to myself. I'm the kind of smile that only comes when you know you've stirred something. Invisible. Something real. It wasn't malice. It wasn't a game. It was clarity. And for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control, quiet power that hadn't been mine in a long time. Claire had always been the one setting the pace, dictating. The terms, the hours, the energy, the affection, or lack of it. Tonight, that script was shifting. I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence stretch long enough for her to wonder, long enough for the tension to build. In these moments, words weren't necessary. The anticipation, the subtle uncertainty, carried its own weight. And when I finally replied, I did it with a precision that matched the months of restraint I had exercised. "I'm here, but not in the way you expect." Her phone buzzed again. This time the text wasn't just a question. It was disbelief, a pause, a tiny crack in the wall she had built around herself. "You're what? Alone? How?" And just like that, the dynamic shifted. The balance that had always felt so one-sided, the silent tension that had defined our evenings, was now trembling. For months, Claire had assumed her distance was invisible, that her late nights, her indifference, her cold detachment would go unnoticed. Tonight, she realized that perhaps she had underestimated me, what I saw, what I felt, and what I was willing to mirror back. Claire's fingers hovered over the keyboard, almost trembling. I could sense it, even through the brief words she typed. The texts were fragmented, cautious, almost defensive. You can't be serious. What are you doing?" I leaned back in my chair, letting her uncertainty do its work. I wasn't trying to punish her, wasn't trying to play a game. I was simply reflecting reality she had been ignoring for months. Weeks had built up to this moment. The silent dinners, the couch nights, the conversations that never really happened. Every subtle withdrawal from her side, every dismissive comment, every long night at work while I sat waiting had carved a distance between us, and tonight, for the first time, she felt it mirrored back. She realized that I wasn't just sitting quietly anymore. I was observing, calculating, responding in a way she couldn't predict. Her next message made it clear how unprepared she was. "Are you saying you're with someone else?" That one line hit the emotional epicenter. I didn't panic. I didn't deny it. I typed slowly, deliberately, letting each word land with precision. "No, not with someone else. Just not waiting for you anymore." I could almost hear her heartbeat through the words, the hesitation, the realization. Our late nights, her dismissive tone, the lack of attention, it had consequences. And now it was her turn to feel the weight of absence, the quiet echo of what she had taken for granted. I stayed calm, even as her messages became more urgent, more desperate. "Ethan, I don't understand. Please tell me what you mean. Are you leaving?" It was a moment of truth. I didn't need to explain everything. I didn't need to justify months of emotional neglect. All that mattered was the clarity of my stance. "I'm here, Claire. I'm not waiting around for what you refused to give." The silence that followed was palpable, heavier than any argument we had ever had. I could feel her mind racing, piecing together the months of small betrayals, the nights she chose work over us, the constant emotional distance. And just like that, the balance shifted. The person who had been untouchable, the one who dictated the pace, the one who had always assumed control, was now left questioning everything. Then, the message came that would change the evening entirely. "Ethan, I didn't realize. I'm coming home." It wasn't an apology, not yet. It was a crack, a hesitation, a sign that she finally understood what I had felt for months. The dynamics were no longer hers alone. For the first time in a long time, the energy in our relationship had shifted. And in that shift, I found a small, quiet satisfaction. Not vengeance, not triumph. It's just the simple power of being seen and acknowledged. When Claire finally walked through the door, I didn't rush to meet her, stayed seated, calm, letting her enter my space and absorb the reality of the moment. She looked at me, eyes wide, a mixture of shock and something I hadn't seen in months. Respect, or at least acknowledgement. For once, she couldn't control the narrative. The late nights, the cold shoulder, the emotional distance, all of it had come full circle. She opened her mouth to speak, and I simply waited. Not impatiently, not with anger, but with the steady patience that comes from knowing your own worth. The words she finally forced out were soft, uncertain. "Ethan, I didn't realize how much I hurt you." That admission, halting as it was, carried more weight than months of excuses ever could. It wasn't the apology that mattered. It was the recognition, the sudden understanding that her actions had consequences. I didn't rush in to comfort her, didn't apologize for my calm, for my distance. I simply said, "I hope you understand." Now, why I said what I did. In that moment, the room shifted. She realized that I wasn't just reacting. I'd been waiting, observing, and choosing my own boundaries. She had assumed I would always be there, always accommodating, always forgiving. Tonight, that assumption shattered over the next few minutes. She tried to explain herself to justify the long hours, the indifference, the emotional unavailability. I listened quietly, nodding when appropriate, never raising my voice, never pleading. For months, I had done everything to keep the connection alive, and her lack of response had spoken louder than any words. Tonight, the clarity was hers to face, and I allowed it to settle. When the conversation ended, it wasn't with fireworks or dramatic declarations. It was quiet, reflective, and real. She retreated to her room, leaving me with the stillness that had been absent for so long. But in that stillness, I felt a quiet triumph. Not arrogance, not revenge, just the satisfaction of reclaiming my own presence, my own emotional space. For months, she had dictated the rhythm. And now, finally, it was mine. Claire's shock, her hesitation, the sudden realization of what she had taken for granted, that was the ultimate confirmation. I had shown her, without shouting, without dramatics, that emotional neglect has consequences. And in that silence, I found closure, control, and the quiet satisfaction of being seen for the first time in months. She would never look at our dynamic the same way again, and that realization alone carried the weight of everything I had endured.